Good evening. Welcome to the Daily Chronicles, September 8th. It was a long night. I told you that I had set Terry's bed up in the sitting area of the master suite, and it was a separate room. You had walked through the sitting room, which was a den, with a couch and television, and then you walked into the master bedroom where the bed and bathroom and all that was. So the bed for Terry was set up in the sitting room where the couch was. So I was able to sleep on the couch or lay on the couch and be close to him. And I really didn't need to do that prior. I could sleep in the master bedroom with the door open and I could hear him if he needed anything. But he was really good about sleeping or being quiet during the night, so it wasn't a problem. But seeing that he was declining and starting to moan and not be able to talk anymore, I spent the night on the couch. I didn't spend the entire night. Matt, his eldest son, came and relieved me during the night so I could go get in my bed and actually sleep a couple of hours while Matt laid on the couch in the same room with Terry. And that night I closed my door and got a couple of hours sleep and got up in the morning. And Terry was pretty much the same. He was moaning and restless, and but he couldn't open his eyes anymore. And well, that's not really true. I guess he could, but there was no, how do I describe that? Just no recognition, I guess. But mostly he kept his eyes closed and he was just agitated. I forgot to mention a couple of days ago that Stephanie had to go back to Seattle. She was living in Seattle at the time, and she didn't have any more leave with her job. So she actually left. And then that morning of the 8th, Maggie's boyfriend was flying in, who is now her husband, but he had never met Terry, and they had been dating a while, and he came out to, of course, give Maggie support, but also to meet Terry. And so she had left to go to she had to go to DIA to pick him up. He was flying in from New York. So Stephanie was gone back to Seattle, and Maggie was driving to DIA. And I had called hospice pretty early when I woke up and told him that, Terry was agitated and what did we need to be doing for him. So the nurse came. It was around, 9:30 in the morning. She came, and I was really upset because Terry was very, very vocal as best he could. He couldn't speak anymore. And I didn't know what that meant. So I was glad she was there because she could answer a lot of questions about what was going on. And she said sometimes people just are vocal, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying to talk. They're just vocal. just making noise. And he just was constant, just moaning, making noise. And I was sitting next to him. I was holding his hand. I was trying to comfort him as best I could. I was telling him I loved him. And his breathing was becoming more and more labored. And it was really clear that he was close to the end. And so Matt fell asleep on the couch in the other room because he had been up a lot during the night with me. And Patrick, Terry's middle son, and Chris, my youngest son, came in the room, and they were sitting by his bedside. And Terry was and whatnot, and so they were sitting a little bit further back, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed. And then it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and he just started breathing slower and slower, moaning less and less. And then at about 11:13, he took his last breath. And I was telling him it was okay, that he could go. I didn't mean it. It wasn't okay. But I told him it was. And the hospice nurse came in and picked up his left arm and tried to, take his pulse. And she took her, I guess they have to wait. She pronounced him dead at, I think, 11:30. Just that scene. In Cinderella, when Cinderella is at the ball and the clock starts striking midnight. And as she's running away, things are dissolving. Her dress turns to rags, and the carriage turns back into a pumpkin. When Terry took his last breath, my fairy tale was just like that. My ball gown turned to rags. It was over. I think I told you when when Terry and I met 10 years earlier. I was a single mom. I was working 2 jobs, and I was struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, trying to make ends meet. I would work, I was an administrator, manager at a small private school where my kids went to school so I could take them with me. And then I would come home and I'd do homework with them, put them to bed, and then I'd start cooking until about midnight because I catered for a couple of families. My life was not easy. And even worse, I had the mindset that nobody would want me because I had young kids. I had a 2-year-old. And the first time Terry and I were on the phone together and he was asking me out for a date, he heard Chris in the background. And Chris was 2. And he said, "What's that noise?" And I was so hesitant. I was scared to tell him. And I said, "That's my 2-year-old. And I said, "Does that make a difference?" I was terrified of his answer. But he said, "Not to me." It really was a Cinderella story for me. He was my prince. And when he died, the fairy tale ended. A lot of you have asked to see a picture, and this is him, Terry Robinson. He had the most beautiful smile. And this is my most favorite picture of us when I married him. He married me. It's one of the best days of my life. He was a remarkable human being. And I was so lucky. To have been his wife and his friend. And he left this world way too early. So in memory of him, and even though it's been 10 years, I still miss him, as does his entire family, his children, his stepchildren. He made an incredible impact in our lives. And the thing about grief, there is no timeline. And it's not something you get over. It's something that you incorporate into your existence. I'm gonna do a couple of more lives. But I'm gonna wrap it up. I do want to thank you for helping me write my book. This is just part of it, but I'm going to talk more about, like I said a couple of days ago, I think, about just how our society handles death and how it's something we should talk about a lot more than we do. And my views on that. I'll tell you the state of affairs a little bit, and I'll sum it up with what I think, in summary. But I do, in closing tonight, want to read Terry's obituary. We had his celebration of life a month later, October 8th, because I wanted to give people a chance to travel and get here, and people were very appreciative that I didn't do something right away. But he was cremated, so I didn't need to do something right away. Okay. Carl, Terry Robinson, beloved husband, father, brother, and friend, died Thursday, September 8th, 2011, in Colorado Springs, Colorado, surrounded by the love of his family. Born in Rye, New York, he graduated from Rye High School in 1965. He received his AB in Political Science from Dartmouth College, 1969, and his MBA, Marketing and Finance from Amos Tuck School, Dartmouth, 1972. Terry was an radio industry visionary who caught the entrepreneurial bug while studying at his beloved Dartmouth. After helping Miller Brewing Company become the second largest brewer Terry founded Sunbelt Communications Limited with fellow Dartmouth and Tuck classmate Bill Moyes. Later, he founded Transtar Radio Network, pioneering the use of satellites to distribute national long-form radio programming. Transtar later merged with other stations to become Unistar and was the second largest network worldwide. During his 20-year radio career, Terry owned 35 radio stations throughout several states. In addition to his business accomplishments, Terry was an All-American swimmer who still holds unchallenged records at Dartmouth College, and that is still true 10 years later. He competed in the Olympic trials in both 1968 and 1972. He later won U.S. Masters swimming throughout the 1980s. Always the sportsman, Terry enjoyed playing golf and being a member of the 19th Hole Society. Terry had a deep passion for music and an encyclopedic memory of songs from the 50s and 60s. He was often a guest member of Flash Cadillac, bringing down the house with his performance of Elvis songs and other classics. Terry had a keen insight into politics and loved debating current issues. He had a strong belief in common sense government and fought for civility in the political arena. Terry was also an avid World War II historian, amassing volumes of knowledge on the subject. He is survived by his wife, Vivian Cobb Robinson, his children, Matthew, Patrick, and Maggie Robinson, his stepchildren, Stephanie and Ben Gardner, and Chris Ionescu Cobb, his three sisters, Debbie Adams, Karen Madison, and Kim Robinson, numerous adoring nephews, nieces, grandnephews, and grandnieces, and many, many devoted friends. Even to this day, people talk about his intelligence, his wit. They miss his commentary, wonder how he would view today's current events and political climate. I hear that all the time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the lovely things you've said, not only on Facebook, but off of Facebook. Thank you for your support of me doing this chronicle. It has not been easy, but it's been so worthwhile. And I do hope it helps those of you who need to hear whatever it is you need to hear from it. Terry was very loved, and he's very missed. And it was an honor to be his wife. Good night.